With a yo-ho-ho, it's Tale of the Toaster. You know what? Let's take another dabble back in Inazuma 11 Orion. I know we're now in peak Victory Road phase, but Orion's here too, especially because although the demo for Victory Road certainly contains some moves from Ares and maybe a little bit from Orion, we are still not at a point where we know all of the official move names from Inazuma 11 Orion. Its Portuguese dub got up to episode 26 and then stopped. We think that because 26 episodes is the same as Ares managed, they maybe just considered that a series in Portugal and said, maybe we'll do the second half some other time. I don't think they're going to do it. Let's be honest, if it's taken this long for the Orion dub to appear, I think we're lucky we got 26 episodes at all, and the other move names are going to have to come out in Victory Road. But that's why this is a video promise that I promised way back when the Orion Portuguese dub had just started airing and we were in the first couple of episodes. I said, okay, well, I've very coincidentally made a video coming up with my own move names for Orion if it had a dub, because we'd reached the point where we thought, yeah, it's never going to happen. It immediately happened as soon as I published that video. Literally, I think it was days of, when I released my video, the Orion dub had started to air, and I'd put in captions what some of the actual names truly were. But now, this is the video I wanted to make at the end, but considering they haven't gone past episode 26 in months, and they might gradually appear in Victory Road, I'm going to do it now. This is going to be a direct comparison of the names that I came up with in my video, and putting them against the official dub names that we've seen in the first 26 episodes, and simply saying, ultimately, upon reflection, which one do I actually think is better? Do I stick by my own choice, or did the dub just do it better? So we're going to do it in two halves, because there's kind of two different categories to compare against, and they're going to get, I think, pretty different score lines. Before we get to the moves where I actually came up with my own original names from them, or occasionally took good suggestions from the comments, I'm going to go for the names where I actually opted to keep the Japanese name and compare them to what they ultimately got. There are still a couple of moves that actually did maintain the Japanese name. So just to be completely clear, the moves that did not change from Japanese to English or Portuguese were Last Resort, Time Trance, Super God Hand, Diamond Ray, Diamond Hand, and Diamond Arm. Everything else is different, starting with Firewall, changing to Burning Bulwark. Now this is a bit of a weird one, because even at the time of making my... oh, by the way, they actually got dub names now, need to mention this. The complication with this move still didn't exist at that point. Basically, Firewall has been translated to Burning Bulwark at some point in Inazuma's history. It could be as early as 2018, it could be as late as last year, but it only aired in a very late 2023 where we learned the Burning Bulwark name, and then immediately, literally weeks afterwards, it appears in the DLC of Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. The Paradox Entei gets a really broken move, also called Burning Bulwark. Of all the moves to overlap between Inazuma and Pokemon, how is it Burning Bulwark? That's really hard to do. I didn't even know what a bulwark was when this name got revealed in Orion, and then it got revealed again in Pokemon. We've always been so conscious of Inazuma not borrowing names from Pokemon. There's only a couple of exceptions like Last Resort and really basic ones like Whirlwind, but Burning Bulwark is not only an overlap, it's one where Inazuma got there first. We were never thinking about Pokemon taking from Inazuma, and it's clearly a coincidence, but if you put that aside, is Burning Bulwark a better name than Firewall? It is more interesting, it's harder to understand, but I'm going to give it the point. But for the rest of them, let's rapid fire it a bit because it's not as interesting. Requiem Dust changed to Hollow Blare, and I think that is an improvement. It's more descriptive of what's going on. Artemis Ring, the goalkeeping move, changed to Force Shield. Yeah, it's a force field pun. It's still a bad one. That's a point for Artemis Ring. The Forgotten Sonata, or Bokyaku no Sonata, changed to Behind Bars. Bars as in musical, but it's also trapping the... Yeah, Behind Bars, amazing. I can only give 1 point per move, but I want to give that one about 10. Red Hot Chili Meteor changed to Red Hot Shower, which is like staying true to the original name, but losing the meaning in the process. It's maybe better, but I'm going to give it to Red Hot Chili Meteor. A little bit later, we'll come back to Fujin Rajin Ghost changing to Mega Margin Trio, but that's just backstory to also know that when it does become the Asura, the dub opted to keep it as a margin and called it Margin Merge. Controversial opinion is I quite like Margin Merge, actually. I think I'm going to give the point to the Asura purely because I'm the only person in the world who likes Margin Merge. That was otherwise very unpopular from all the Asura fans around the world. But I don't hate it. And then finally, this is 2 free points for the Orion dub at the end, because when I said they should keep these names, I was wrong. Diamond Punch absolutely needed to change to Diamond Knuckle, and it did. Basically because Niketsu Punch is known in the dub as Fireball Knuckle, so this needed to be Diamond Knuckle, and they didn't actually miss the trick on that one. They did call it Diamond Knuckle. Diamond Edge, meanwhile, from Clario, just got a little better by calling itself Diamond Cutter, and both of those are an improvement. All of the other moves that I said should stay the same but we don't know their dub names are the Shelter, Innocent Drive, Margin the Wave, Blue Stardust, Carnival Shake, Emperor Penguin No. 2 featuring Shark, Sunrise Blitz, Runaway Chariot, Orion Cross Viper, Perseus Orb, and Super Megaton Head. But there's the scores between the ones they opted to change and the ones that I think should have stayed the same. Haven't added them up in my head, but there's my total. Make your own as well in the comments. But now let's get to the main event, the moves where I came up with a new name for them, and then the show also came up with a new, different name for them. Would have been funny if there was a case where the dub actually ended up choosing the dub name that I chose. But no, that never happened. There was no Venus Ball Trap from the Go Galaxy fan patch moment. The first one is Bison Horn in Japanese, which I translated to Barging Bison, and then the dub translated to Bull Rush. I think Bull Rush is definitely better than Barging Bison. I also did say within the video, though, that a commenter suggested calling the move Seeing Red, and I think I like Seeing Red the most out of all 4 options. If you're comparing Barging Bison and Bull Rush, then it's a point for the official dub in Bull Rush. For the sake of brevity, let's go with that. However, the dub then gets a very free point. It's probably the thumbnail because it's one of the best dub names I've ever heard. Kamikaze Buffalo Train, I said it should just be slightly modified to Buffalo Express. The dub says, what if we fully modified it and made it Bull Steam Ahead? That's great. That's an excellent move name. Go with that. The dub's going to lose a point next though, and it shouldn't even be going to me either, because I couldn't come up with a good name for this move either, but I certainly did better than the dub. Spinning Fence of Nathan Swift, that's one where you could argue keeping it, but it was a little too meaningless for me in English, so I opted to change it to Triclone. Instead of just Cyclone, it could be Triclone, and then the commenters also said Vacuum Wall would be quite nice. The dub said, we can't even think of Triclone. We're actually going to call it Cyclone. You know there's been a move called Cyclone since Inazuma 11 won, right? At least in Victory Road we might finally learn how it's spelled. Maximum Circus is another one where a lot of fans wanted to keep it the same as the Japanese name, but I figured they would change it. I said Jester's Privilege because I couldn't really come up with too much on that one, to be honest. The dub did come up with something. They called it Flurry Go Round. It's not the best, but it's comfortably enough to take the point. Sun's Guillotine took an interesting one then, because I called it Solar Scythe, And I was a little conscious of the fact there's already quite a lot of moves with Solar in the name. Some of them are fighting spirit shots, sure, but Solar Scythe still sounds pretty cool to me. It justifies using the word Solar again. They went for something completely different, and they called it Razor Blade. But Razor spelled as in R-A-I-S-E-R. This is another one where I selfishly kind of ended up preferring the dub one because of the fact Razor Blade is the name of a Robot Wars competitor, and ended up liking it more because also in the dub the guy absolutely screams it. He's like, Razor Blade! But if I step back and think about it, I think Solar Scythe is a better name. So even though I oddly prefer Razor Blade in a sense, I think I'm going to give myself the point for Solar Scythe. Now the next one, I thought about it, and I'm just going to skip it in terms of points, because if this ended up influencing the total score, this would be a silly way for either of us to win. Fujin Rajan Ghost had to change, but we knew it wasn't going to change to anything good. If Fujin Rajan became Mega Margin, then Fujin Rajan Ghost was going to become Mega Margin something. We knew that. So I just, in the end, went with Mega Margin Ghost to keep it as simple as possible. The dub actually went with Mega Margin Trio. Neither one of these is better or worse. It's hardly a guess, is it? Death Crusher Zone is a move that needed a better name to save it from obscurity, because I'm not big on this move whatsoever really, but I think they managed it. My suggestion was either to make it a new generation version of Death Zone 2, or if it was to have a brand new name, it would be Death Zone Volley, based on Penguin Volley as well as Death Zone. The dub went with keeping Death Zone in there, and they called it Beyond the Death Zone. Again, because it's not in a game, it doesn't have to worry about how long the move name is, and I'm going to credit it for that. You can have a point for Beyond the Death Zone. I will be taking one back though, because Moonlight Circle Swallow Return was one of my more popular dub names in the comments. I called it Past and Crescent, and the dub also went with Crescent as part of the name, but did basically nothing else. They called it Crescent Kick, and that could have just been in Inazuma 1. Like, it sounds cool. You're allowed to use the word kick sometimes, but when I'd already guessed the word and built upon that, and then the official dub name chooses the word and puts kick on the end, yeah, I'll go with Past and Crescent. This was an important one. Dynamic Corona. We don't know when the Portuguese dub of Orion was actually made, whether it was at the time or more recently, but it matters for this move because they could have kept Corona in the name, but thankfully they didn't. I changed it to Pulsar Purge, or for a more jokey one, Check Your Pulsar. The dub just came up with a better joke. They called it Sunblock, as in sunscreen, but it's also blocking the... It took me a while to get it. I first heard Sunblock and I was like, well, that's a bit basic. And then I thought about it for more than 3 seconds and I'm like, oh yeah, that's pretty cool. This is very back and forth though, because Burning Hinotori, Burning Phoenix, I think I had the dub beat here. The dub went with Flaming Firebird, and I'm glad that they didn't put Phoenix in the name because they had to differentiate it from the Phoenix, which was going to be in the America match later in the season. If we got it, because it's after episode 26, ha 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 ha, I guess it's not in Orion after all. But Firebird is still so closely associated with Chrono Stones and its opening song, and also Alpha's fighting spirit, that you've avoided Phoenix to take from something else. I called it something Phoenix associated, which was From the Ashes, or alternatively, We Rise Again. And both of those, I think, beat Flaming Firebird. Watch out though, Tails on a roll, because Sky Falcon's Bullet, or Tenku Hayabusadan, it takes a knock in the same way that the whole team takes a knock. I don't know what they were thinking with China in the dub, because the team was called Soccer Acrobatic Troupe, and then in the dub they called them the Revenge Acrobats, which doesn't really sound cohesive anyway, but also, what revenge? China's not about revenge. It's like the two teams that merge into one to then represent themselves at all different levels of the country in a tournament. And yeah, they're there to beat the Orion villains, but so is Japan, and Japan ends up doing it. There's no vengeance between Japan and China themselves in the season, so Revenge Acrobats hits really weird as a name. And then they also carried it across to Li Hao's main shot. They also ruined Li Hao's name, by the way. They called him Jimmy Wong Fu. And that's the last time I'm ever going to say that on this channel. I just wanted to call it Acroblast. Acrobat, Blast, easy. They called it Avenging Eagle. First of all, it was never an eagle, it was a falcon. And then again, what's with the revenge? I don't understand. That wasn't a part of their Japanese name. Yeah. Ew, yikes. But a bit of a yikes all around on Heaven and Earth Fissure. All I did was simplify it to Sky Fissure. The dub did come up with something more original, but it's pretty hit or miss. Some people like it, some people don't. It's called Crack Shot. I still think that's enough to take the point, though. Complete opposite now, we've got two good options to choose from. Dragon God's Iron-Ribbed Fan desperately needed a dub name, and boy did it get one. The official name for this move is Fantastic Save. Again, we don't know how it's spelled, but Fantastic Save. If you look at it without knowing it's a fan-based move, then it looks like a terrible name. But yeah, it's a fan, so I like Fantastic Save. I still prefer mine, though, and I think the name that I chose for it was probably the best name I came up with as part of the video, so happy enough to take the dub on that one. But I called it Fan the Flames. So it's both a fan joke and it's about the fire attribute. It's not just about the fan. Then we get to one where I got absolutely obliterated by the dub. Explosive Devouring Lion was one of the moves I spent the most time trying to come up with one for. I couldn't do it. I watched it over and over again and nothing was occurring to me. I ended up calling it Lion's Feast, but I wasn't happy with it. And then the dub not only picked something good, they picked one of their best names of the entire season. Last Lion of Defense. Last Lion of Defense. That's brilliant! Again, I can only give it 1 point, but I want to give it 10. Another slightly odd one to include where we already have half the move. Fire Lemonade Rising. I knew I didn't want to keep the rising part, but we still have to keep the Fire Lemonade. I went with Fire Lemonade 0 to represent zero sugar lemonade, but I did that from a Brit perspective where, to us, all lemonade is fizzy. And, you know, the variations you can buy are, you've got fizzy lemonade and you've got sugar-free fizzy lemonade. I love lemonade, personally, as done properly. Like, I can eat a lemon whole and not even bat an eyelid. But I just, in that moment, forgot that outside of my own country, lemonade isn't always fizzy. The fact that it can be fizzy is like an extra attribute that I just completely took for granted. So when the official dub decided to call it Fizzy Fire Lemonade, yeah, I think knowing that the original Fire Lemonade wasn't necessarily fizzy, it's a Japanese lemonade, yeah, that's probably the better route. And then one where I had a pretty good option, but the dub, I think, did it better. Shark the Deep, we did want to change. Shark Attack was the easy one to come up with. I came up with it myself, but I had like 3 different commenters suggest it as well. Everyone settled on Shark Attack, and that would be very easy. And the dub decided, let's not do easy, let's come up with something even better. They called it Shark Shooter. I'm a sharkshooter, Devil's Masquerade. Yeah, anyway, Shark Shooter wins for me. Now this second to last one is really odd because the bubbles is technically called the Boyon in Japanese, but it means the bubbles, so we can still consider the bubbles to be the name. And my main suggestion was to keep it as the bubbles, so you could put it in the first half of the video where we didn't change it, but I came up with a few others as well. Bubble Over and Bubble Bubble were both options. What the dub did was just forego the word bubble. They called it Wetsuit, which is funny because, yeah, he's turning into water. He is a suit of wet, I guess, and then stops the ball with his body. But it is also just a word at the same time. I don't really know where I stand on wetsuit. I like it and I don't. But also, what was my option in the first place that I'm comparing it against? I should have put it in the first section as the bubbles, but I guess now that it's here, I'll say that Bubble Bubble was my suggestion, and I guess it wins. In fact, I haven't been keeping track of the score, so let's just discount that one entirely and put it down to the last one again, if the winner's already been decided, which it probably has. There's not meant to be suspense or anything, but the last move we got a dub name for, other than Diamond Cutter, Diamond Knuckle, all of those, was Glacial Gungnir, the combination of Sean Frost and Aiden Frost, and this is a hard one to make. And I kind of wish I knew what the total scores were when I was making this call, because if this decides it, oh dear. Oh, actually, I have skipped one that I'll come back to at the end. For now, Glacial Gungnir, I wanted to call it Legendary Blizzard as a combination of Sean's move Eternal Blizzard and Aiden's move Legendary Wolf. This is the only time we see them do a dedicated move like this other than White Double Impact, Cold Front. Yeah, but Cold Front is just an expanded Eternal Blizzard, whereas this has got the Legendary Wolf kind of Aiden aspect in it. So I wanted to celebrate that. The official dub didn't. The official dub wanted to call it Icebreaker. But that's still good. It's one of those obvious ice puns that can be given to any ice move. You don't have to be this to be Icebreaker, even though the ice around Sean does physically shatter around him, so it's still appropriate. It's like, you know, Cold Front could have been Icebreaker, whereas only this move can be Legendary Blizzard. I think it really comes down to how much you value a joke. I think a lot of the people who aren't that hot on the dub names would go for Legendary Blizzard out of the two. They'd obviously say just keep Glacial Gungnir, but Icebreaker is more of a dub fan's kind of name. So I think on that I'm just going to edge it towards Legendary Blizzard. But I think the official dub has still won this overall on points. We have one more, which, again, I guess, I will count this as well. Red Break was a very uninspiring name. Red Break seemed like one of the worst Hissatsus of all time when we learned that name. I decided to call it Crimson Curve, which is just a typical bit of alliteration, dress up what it's already describing. The dub decided to call it Bullseye Blaze, so another alliteration one. But it's good because it's going alongside Bull Rush and Bull Steam Ahead. So Bullseye Blaze is also in that category. So based on the fact it belonged with the others, Bullseye Blaze would win. But again, I have to put a little disclaimer in that one of the comments suggested a additional name for the move, which I think is better than both. And the comment suggestion was Backburner, which is great because the move is on fire, it is a backwards kick, and it manages to bring life and a bit of humour to an otherwise nothing burger of a move. So I think Backburner is the best, but it's also not my name. So really, if it's a battle between Crimson Curve and Bullseye Blaze, I will go with Bullseye Blaze. Which gives us these totals. Who won? Was it my name or was it the dub ones? Decided entirely, of course, by my own opinion. So I think if I'm ever going to win on anyone's criteria, it's going to be my own, right? I think mostly the dub is going to win this in most people's opinion because they did, honestly, a really good job for the most part. There's a few duds like Force Shield and Cyclone and the whole situation with China and its team name and its move names and its players. Even the special tactics, which I didn't do. The special tactic was just called Great Wall. All of their special tactics are better than what I could have come up with, because how do you come up with names for the special tactics? We don't know anything about them. But again, episodes 27 through to 54 would have a whole load of other moves waiting to get their dub names, and we might see them in Victory Road. Hopefully we see them in Victory Road anyway, or maybe the Orion dub gets finished, but it's looking a little doubtful at this point. So for now, hope you enjoyed this one, and let me know in the comments which you preferred out of my dub names, the official dub names, maybe even some of yours. You can still suggest new ones, especially for all these other ones that don't have one yet, like GGG Senju no Aria. I really wanted to know what that one was gonna be called, and yes, I would have ended up probably choosing my own name of Move Heaven and Earth anyway, but we were so close to getting the dub name for the move that needed it the most. GGG Senju on Aria is the worst name of all time, but anyway, that's for another video, I guess. Maybe. See you in another one.